Welcome to the Deep Dive. Great to have you tuning in.
Good to be here.
So you've shared some really fascinating source material with us, all centered on 1970s folk and soft rock.
That's right. A really rich period.
Yeah, and what jumps out immediately looking through this is this kind of, well, this duality. You had huge stadium rock, disco was exploding.
Right. Excess was definitely in the air.
But alongside that, you get this incredible wave of really intimate, acoustic music, singer-songwriters pouring their hearts out. It feels almost paradoxical.
It really does, doesn't it? And that paradox, I think, is why this music resonated so strongly then, and maybe why it grabbed your attention now through these sources.
Okay.
So our goal here, our mission for this deep dive using your materials, is to really get under the skin of the artistry, the lasting impact of people like James Taylor, Joni Mitchell, Carole King, Cat Stevens too. We want to explore how their very personal stories somehow became, well, universal anthems, things people still connect with.
Right. So for someone wanting to quickly but really get this era, understand the key players from these sources, this is the place to be.
Exactly. We'll hit the highlights, dig into what made it special, all based on the insights you've gathered.
Perfect. Let's start with James Taylor then. Your sources definitely paint him as a really central figure. That voice, so smooth, and those reflective lyrics, seems like he set a tone.
He absolutely did. What's really key about Taylor, looking at the material, is how he helped solidify the singer-songwriter as the main event.
What do you mean exactly?
Well, it was a bit of a shift, Instead of just singers performing songs written by, say, a Brill Building team, you had the person who wrote it, who lived it, stepping up to the mic.
Ah, okay. More direct.
Very direct, often drawing straight from their own lives. And his album from 1970, Sweet Baby James's, I'm sure your sources mention it a lot. That's just a landmark record.
It definitely comes up.
It has this warmth, this comfort, but it's not afraid to touch on some pretty deep, vulnerable stuff, too.
And Fire and Rain is mentioned everywhere in these articles. It just feels like the quintessential sound of that specific 70s melancholy. Beautiful, but with this real undercurrent of sadness.
Yeah.
Why do you think that vulnerability was so appealing back then? And maybe why it appeals now?
Well, if you think about the early 70s, like some of your sources might suggest, there was maybe a bit of a cultural hangover.
Yeah.
The big ideals of the late 60s hadn't all panned out.
A dose of reality setting in.
Something like that. A bit more introspection, maybe some disillusionment. So when Taylor was so open, so sincere about his struggles, it connected.
Right.
People felt that. That honesty, ditching the usual rock star bravado, that was a massive part of his appeal. And the appeal of the whole scene, really.
Your sources also focus heavily on Joni Mitchell. For me, she's just her poetry. It's incredible how she paints these really complex emotional pictures with just words.
Oh, she was something else entirely. And yeah, the poetic genius, you're spot on there. But it wasn't just the words, was it?
No, definitely not.
It was her guitar playing so intricate, often really unconventional tunings, and that voice, almost ethereal sometimes. It created this whole sonic world. And connecting that to the bigger picture, her 1971 album, Blue, I mean, your sources probably call it influential, right?
Yeah, landmark, masterpiece, those kinds of words.
And they're right. It's often seen as one of the greatest albums, period.
Yeah.
The raw honesty on it, the way she just lays her experiences bare, it's still incredibly powerful, still inspires people.
You can feel the weight in it, like she held nothing back.
Exactly.
Now, Carole King comes up a lot, too. Fascinating story, writing all those massive hits for other people behind the scenes.
Yeah, hit machine.
And then steps out as a performer herself. What was the significance of that move?
Oh, it was huge. Absolutely a key to her impact, and I'm glad your sources highlighted it. She'd already shaped pop music, right? But Tapestry in 71, wow.
It was massive.
It wasn't just a bestseller. It became part of the cultural furniture for so many people. It talked about those inner feelings, love, doubt, relationships with such clarity, such directness. It felt like she was singing right to you about things you were feeling, that universal connection.
And the songs, I feel the earth move, you make me feel like a natural woman. I mean, they're just woven into everything now. How did she manage that connection?
I think it's that relatability you mentioned. Her songs came from her life, sure, but they were written in a way that let everyone see themselves in them. It wasn't alienating honesty. It was inviting.
Okay, that makes sense.
Then there's Cat Stevens, another name prominent in your materials. He brought this reflective, almost spiritual vibe, didn't he?
Yeah, definitely a sense of searching in his lyrics. And that voice is so unique. Your sources mention songs like Father and Son, that dialogue structure.
Right, the two perspectives. Very effective.
And Wild World, that kind of bittersweet look at change. What was his unique contribution, do you think?
He really tapped into that spirit of questioning, of self-discovery that was definitely floating around in the early 70s. The zeitgeist,
Mm-hmm.
his music tackled big life questions, but in a really accessible, heartfelt way.
Mm-hmm.
And those songs you mentioned, perfect examples of taking personal thoughts and making them resonate widely.
It is interesting, isn't it, how all these different artists took their own very personal stuff, like acoustic confessions, you called it, and turned them into these anthems everyone related to.
Absolutely. And the main tool
Hmm.
seems like it was almost always the acoustic guitar.
Yeah, the sources really emphasize that. It creates this immediate connection, doesn't it? No big wall of sound, just the song, the voice, the guitar.
Exactly. It creates intimacy, a direct line from the artist to you, the listener. It wasn't about flash, it was about the story, the emotion,
Yeah, huh?
and those common themes you picked up on love, loss, finding yourself. They just landed perfectly with a generation dealing with change and maybe looking for something
Yeah.
authentic,
Mm.
real.
Your sources also threw up some interesting behind the scenes bits, like the relationship between Joni Mitchell and James Taylor influencing their songwriting. That's quite a dynamic, isn't it?
Oh, yeah, fascinating stuff. Their lives, personal and creative, were really intertwined for a while there.
Did the sources give specific examples?
They often hint at it, yeah.
Yeah.
And when you listen to certain songs from that time, knowing that context adds this whole other layer, it's almost like a musical conversation happening between them. You feel that intimacy.
Interesting. And what about Carole King's Tapestry having that cross-genre appeal? Your articles mentioned soul and R&B artists covering her songs.
Right. That just shows the fundamental strength of the songwriting, doesn't it?
Absolutely.
Great melodies, universal lyrics. They just work no matter the genre dressing. Tapestry proved that. It connected across musical boundaries because the core emotions were so genuine.
Then there's Nick Drake. Your materials mention him not a big star in his day.
No, tragically overlooked commercially.
But now he's celebrated. Those unique guitar tunings, the haunting melodies. He seems like a musician, a huge influence now.
His story is quite poignant, as your sources probably outlined. But what's compelling is his absolute dedication to his own unique sound.
Even without the fame.
Exactly.
Yeah.
He stuck to his vision, this intricate, emotionally deep acoustic music. And that body of work, it just keeps resonating. Those tunings, for example, created sounds few others were making. That originality still inspires.
So, for our listener wanting to really dive in and appreciate this music based on these sources they've shared, what should they listen for?
Okay, good question. Drawing from the insights in your materials, I definitely say listen to the whole album.
Not just cherry picking singles.
Right. These records often had a flow, a narrative arc. They were conceived as a whole emotional journey. You get more from listening start to finish.
That makes sense. The full artistic statement.
Precisely. And then really listen to the lyrics. We've talked about how they were storytellers. Analyzing the words tells you so much about them, the times, maybe even yourselves.
Uh,
Also, pay attention to the acoustic guitar playing. It wasn't just background strumming. Listen for the finger picking, those alternate tunings like with Drake. The guitar was another voice, carrying emotion, just as much as the vocals. And finally, maybe try to understand the context, the history, the culture of the 70s. Your sources might touch on this. It adds depth to why this music mattered so much then.
Those are great practical tips. Thinking slightly outside the box. Any other ways someone could connect with this music beyond just hitting play?
That's an interesting angle. How to actively engage. Well, one idea, playing off how personal this music is,
Yeah.
maybe try writing something yourself. A song, a poem. Tap into your own experiences, your feelings, like these artists did. Doesn't have to be for anyone else. Just engage with that process.
Oh, I like that. Step into their creative mindset.
Kind of, yeah.
Yeah.
Another thought, maybe more social. See if there are any local live music nights doing 70s covers.
Ah,
Hearing these songs live, interpreted by musicians today, it can give you a fresh perspective, remind you how powerful they still are, how they still connect.
good ideas. So, wrapping up this deep dive, what's the main takeaway for our listener, having explored this 70s folk and soft rock world through these sources?
I think the core message, really, is that this was more than just a musical trend. It was a significant cultural moment.
Uh-huh.
It was about taking really deep personal introspection and somehow turning it into a shared experience for millions.
Transforming the personal into the universal.
Exactly. And its legacy lasts because it tapped into something timeless, the simple power of vulnerability, of honest storytelling and music. These artists show that sharing your own world could connect with and maybe even comfort countless others.
It's a powerful idea, isn't it? That the deepest connections can come from the most personal places.
It really is.
So, for you, the listener, we definitely encourage you to explore more. Dive into the catalogs of James Taylor, Joni Mitchell, Carole King, Cat Stevens. Maybe seek out Nick Drake, too. Let these acoustic confessions become part of your story.
Yeah, absolutely. And maybe here's a final thought to chew on as you listen further. Something building on these sources. In a world that often seems to value noise and spectacle, what is it about this often quiet, deeply personal music that still holds such a powerful, maybe even comforting grip on us, both collectively and individually?
Hmm, something to think about.
Definitely something worth pondering long after the music stops.